In a previous video, we discussed that in order to set up Hyper-V, we first need to enable virtualization. So take a look at the UEFI startup screen that we get to by pressing either the delete key, the F1, F2, F10, just depends on the brand of computer and what the button says to click for startup. And sometimes it just says setup. Either way, you'll get a screen similar to this, and you'll see an option many times under the Advanced tab that says Enable Virtualization Technology. Other times you're going to see VTX instead of virtualization. They both mean the same thing. Just make sure they're enabled, and then we can move on by booting into Windows. We've now logged into our Windows Server 2016 Server Manager dashboard. And from here, we're going to click on Add Roles and Features. And when we get there, we get a wizard that comes up, which we will now choose to install our Hyper-V role. So we'll go ahead and click Next until we get to Server Roles. And once we get to Server Roles, then we can choose our Hyper-V role from the list. Now that we're in Server Roles, let's scroll down to where it says Hyper-V, and we will check the Hyper-V box, and we'll get a new box that pops up to ask us to add additional features. Go ahead and choose to add those features. Then once the box is checked, we can go ahead and click Next, and then we can choose which Ethernet controller we're going to use for Hyper-V. Now you can use the same one that you use for your regular server, but I recommend you have a second network card so you can separate that traffic just in case you get bottlenecked with too much traffic. Let's go ahead and click Next. Now we can allow the server to send and receive live migrations up from other virtual machines. I definitely like to have this checked so I can move these virtual machines in the future if I need to. There's a couple of different authentication protocols you can use in order to set up the security. You can use the less secure CRED SSP or the more secure Kerberos. Let's go ahead and choose Kerberos. Click Next. Here are the default locations for your virtual disks. You can leave it at the default or choose another drive letter. And now we're ready to install. After installation is done, we will need to restart our server, and then we will see the Hyper-V Manager option appear in Server Manager under Tools. Let's go ahead and let this finish installing, restart the server, and then pick up from there. Our server has rebooted and we're back in Server Manager. Let's go over to our Tools menu, and we see that Hyper-V Manager has been added, and we'll click on that. And we now see Hyper-V Manager opened, and we have several different options off to the right-hand side, such as our Virtual Switch Manager. And we've already set up our virtual switch when we chose our network card during the installation. And by default, it created an external network for us. If we change our minds, we can choose to do an internal or a private network where we can only communicate with either the host or just the other virtual machines. Let's go ahead and leave it as external because we want our clients to connect to it as well, and make sure Allow Management Operating System to share this network adapter is checked so both the operating system and the virtual machine can both use this particular network adapter. Now we're ready to create our first virtual machine, which we will do in an upcoming video. Preparing the Hyper-V server requires several important steps prior to installing your first virtual machine. Once we have our first virtual server installed, we can add additional security features new to Windows Server 2016.